Welcome to this evening's workshop.
I don't think they got it.
On our budget for the 1920 fiscal year. We'll have a presentation. Nice to have everyone here supporting us. Good. Katie.
An echoing.
Yeah, we're
I don't
not
know.
on loud. We're not up loud,
Yeah, we're on.
but we're not up loud.
Maybe we're
A
echoing.
moment.
Whoa. I mean, I have a
That
loud
was
enough
me. I
voice.
just
I don't think
made sure I was on.
All right. So tonight, we are going, I know it's still echoing. We're going to review the budget drivers, review the revenue, and the local tax impact. So you will have all that you need for information, and then you can ask questions. On Monday night with school committee, with city council, we're part of the workshop, and it starts at 5:30, but we are the fourth item on the agenda.
So we're closer to 7.
We're closer to 6:30.
So
So don't rush to be here at 5:30. You'll probably be sitting for an hour, because there's 2 presentations ahead of us, and then the city manager is doing his budget overview, and then we're going to move into the CIP presentations, and then I've been asked to do the budget overview. So part of our workshop can be, what do we want to bring to city council on Monday? If we have time, which I think we will, Adam can also go over the capital improvement plan that you're voting on later tonight. So we've got that as well. All right? And you're fixing that?
Keep talking so Dave can hear.
Okay. So the budget drivers are really the salary and benefits. So salary and benefits make up $34 million of our budget, which makes up 75% of our total budget. The salary and benefit increase is approximately $2 million, and that's the scheduled increases based on contract, and it's also with the proposed additional staff. This increase is 98% of the total increase to the budget. We have budgeted 12% for health insurance, which represents $661,000. Tomorrow, we will have, first thing, I believe tomorrow morning, MEA Trust is going to release the number. We're being told it's good news. So part of our discussion tonight is, if we get the anticipated good news and we have some savings from that, how might we use that? And what do we want to bring forward to City Council? So we can talk that through a little bit. The new positions, the positions shifted from the grant, which I'm going to review, to general fund, and the new special ed program is accounting for $791,000. So to maintain our programming is $1.2 million. So of the $2 million increase, $1.2 million of that is just to maintain current staffing. Okay. So just to review what's new in the budget. So we have new positions. We have the ELL teacher at Park Avenue, an interventionist at Walton, an interventionist at Auburn Middle School, a computer science teacher at Edward Little High School, a substance misuse counselor at Edward Little High School, and an Ed Tech 3 behavior support for Walton. That's totaling $438,000. So those new positions, $438,000.
and
Yes.
the 81,000 for salaries does include the benefits?
Yes. That's the total cost of that position.
Because it kind of whacks it out a little bit for the general public, because I know that is not
Right.
in our negotiations right
No,
there.
correct. Yeah, we have to factor what health they might take, so that sometimes you win and lose in that.
Yep.
So better to think high than come in low. Right.
Katie, do you want questions later or
Do I want what?
questions
You
later?
can, oh no, this is your workshop. Ask away.
One question I had is the Park Avenue ELL teacher.
Yes.
Is that because we have had an inordinate amount of extra students coming in? Because my question is always, at what point in time do students, should students be able to start working strictly from an English language?
Yes.
and not have to, how long does it take for the journey from beginning to end?
And, well, that varies. We have many ELL students on consult, so they have to score and Lila's here, hopefully she knows, a 5 now. I was going to say 6, thank you, Scott. So they have to score a 5 on, it got lowered, it did get lowered. That's why I was looking. On the access test, so if you are a English language learner student, you have to score at a 5 to go on to consult and not need ELL services. So it can be consult and then you don't need ELL services. So all our students are assessed, and then they have individual plans, similar to special ed, they have individual plans for those students, and then they need to show growth and so forth. So it depends if the student is coming in with no English, that can take 5 to 7 years. It all depends. So when Robin was looking at her numbers, so Robin Fleck, our ELL team leader, she looked at the Park Avenue numbers, the Auburn Middle School numbers, and the ELL numbers. Now, one thing we will start discussing is whether we do a second ELL program in the New Auburn area. So something that we'll probably discuss with the Sherwood Heights and Walton principal with the Park Avenue principal is that a possibility with this position? We're not sure. So what Robin said is we can have a reduction at Edward Little High School. So remember, this position is a half-time ELL, half-time English teacher at Auburn Middle School, at Edward Little. So Edward Little will go from a 2.5 ELL need to a 2. That half is being moved over to Park Avenue. Now, I put it as a whole because I'm filling in the English part of the ELL teacher, and I'm filling in the half at Park Avenue. So I put it so it wasn't confusing. It's one ELL position at Park Avenue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, do we have a ballpark as to how many more we have right now compared to last year, the year before?
I do have that information, so I can look for that, but I'll send that out to you, yes, because Robin gives me all that information, yes.
Thank you.
So sometimes it could be one student that's now dominating staff. So it varies in what they get for influx, what the needs of the students are, so yes. And we do very well with our ELL population in how they do for graduation rates, how they do in meeting their access scores. So we do very well with our ELL. So Robin just wants you to be aware that there is a need to add.
And the last question that I have is, what is the life journey of that ELL student? I mean, I know I spoke French until I was 6. I was in a parochial school.
Correct.
It took me 2 weeks to learn how to speak English.
Right.
And honestly, I did.
Yeah.
And all my siblings coming through, I took 2 weeks every year to help them interpret French to English. So when I look at that, my take is, how many years do we continue this journey with students?
Well, by law, you have to service them if they score below a 5.
Below a 5.
5 or lower, they have to have service.
Didn't have those then.
And what's deceiving, what's very deceiving, and Lila can speak to it and others can speak to it, what's deceiving is they can speak very well English, but it's not just speaking. They have to be able to read it, write it,
Exactly.
comprehend it.
Total language
So I
arts.
think, so I think sometimes it looks like, well, why do you get services? You speak fine English. No, there's more to it than meets the eye.
Does the criteria extend down to their families too? So that if their families are not speaking English, no.
It doesn't play a factor,
Just
no.
doesn't matter, okay.
No, by law, when every student registers, they do a home language survey. And so if the family says they speak a second language in the home, then Rob and her staff have to evaluate and assess. So let's say Walton, a student comes and they get a home survey that says there's a second language. That family's told that they need to be assessed. And if Walton can service them, maybe on a consult, they would go to Walton. But if they need direct services, then they're asked to attend Park Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. But I will definitely have Robin. She has stuff, so I'll send that out to you.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm very in support of the interventionists, but would you explain what they are doing at this point? What activities they undertake and what support they provide for students and teachers?
Well, probably right when students get off the bus, they're engaging with the students. So I know, and Mike's here and Bob's here, so they certainly can come up and speak again. When Walton, looking at their data, they have literacy interventionist. This is looking at a math interventionist, similar to what Lisa Coburn's doing at Washburn. So they start from right first thing in the morning with groups, small group, one-on-one groups. They might work in the classroom, so they go into a classroom and intervene with support with the teacher, or they pull out and intervene with student. So that person will become part of their data team. So when they sit and they say, what does every student need based on their data? What can we do for programming? And this interventionist would pick up probably a math component that they don't have now.
And about how many students can an interventionist service?
Be surprised how many, quite a few. I would say, what are you thinking, Mike?
I think there are more students, honestly, that need support than the one interventionist would do.
Absolutely. But I would say, Kim, what do you think, interventionists?
Depends on the role, but I would say from 20 to 30.
Yeah, 20 to 30 students.
And does every school have an interventionist, one or more?
Yes.
Every school.
Every school. Fairview has a teacher that is serving in that role, Pam Wimette. So they do have a teacher that they have chosen not to put in a classroom, that they have to do that work. And then we know special ed also serves in dual roles.
And it's a certified teacher?
Correct. These are certified teachers. That's why it's important that they are certified teachers, because we want the most skilled people working. It's also with the low, because I know we brought up, can ed techs do these positions? It's being very hard to fill our ed tech positions. We have ed tech openings right now that we can't fill because of the job market. So we want highly skilled people. Will be, especially the Walton one will be wanting a math, focus. The one at Auburn Middle School, they're looking at literacy support. So Auburn Middle School doesn't have interventions like the elementary school, and so this is a position to help with literacy, help with behavior plans. So this is a skilled teacher that doesn't need support from another teacher, because what we don't want to do is add extra work to our classroom teacher to support what are they doing with the students. This person will be listening, talking to the teacher, and then creating the plan.
Do we think that the actual staff will come out of our current staff and we'll be hiring new teachers, or are these going to be specialized interventionists we hire new?
Well, I think I'm anticipating there'll be people in our current classrooms that apply for these positions, and then we will have openings in our classrooms. Because we know of people that have already shown interest. They've heard it's on the budget, so I know they've talked to their principals and said, I might be interested in this position. Good questions. Any other questions?
The two other, computer science
Yeah.
and the substance misuse, are part of our project, the
Yes.
UEL project.
Yes.
Having those staff positions justify the space.
Correct.
Has been allocated and paid for by the state in the new EL.
I will tell you, Eric Eisman's doing computer science teacher. He does a lot of our computer work. And next year, he's offering a machinist coding class. So he's really working. He had students up at Central Maine Community College, but it's not community, and looking at the precision machining and how much kids need to code now, even in manufacturing. So he's going to be doing a coding class around machinists, which is really exciting. So he does a lot of work in the computer. And really, we need to keep adding to those type of things, yes. And then the substance misuse counselor, with all the work, and we will be having a presentation in April with Healthy the second meeting in April with Healthy Androscoggin to talk about the Jules epidemic. So talking about what are we doing for students, how are we monitoring that, what's the work we're doing around that. And having a substance misuse counselor will be a great addition to helping students that are struggling and misusing things, that making unhealthy choices. So that's a really important position. And then the Walton Behavior Ed Tech 3. Good questions. These are grant positions to federal general fund. So as I spoke to you last time, Washburn has seen the positive impact of their school improvement grant, and would be great if these grants could, hold steady while you're doing the great work. Things don't happen overnight. It's a journey, and they really have seen a positive impact around students being in class, being engaged, an increase in that instructional time for all students with these type of supports. And so Lisa Coburn, who's been a long-time teacher with us, she's had many trainings. We've invested in this position. We've sent her to University of Maine, Farmington to get the coaching. So, we have to continue the return on investment. So we're asking her position to come in the general fund, and then the behavior support for Washburn. So these Ed Tech 3s, they are a lifeline for many of our students. They are checking with them first thing in the morning, they're checking them during the day, they're checking them out at the end of the day, how was your day, giving that positive reinforcement. So the teacher who's trying to teach the 25 students in front of her, trying to, small group interventions, doing stuff like that, this person is called on to help a little person make it a successful day. And it also helps her stay on task instructing the other students. So this is a benefit to say, okay, this student needs small intervention time, needs a little take a break. This person does that rather than taking away from the teacher. So these are really important positions. Ryan's special ed is also covering one of these special ed one of these positions. So they have a couple of Ed Tech 3s. We're doing 2, and then we're having other support.
So these positions are moving from the grant positions that we had when Washburn had that terrible designation?
Yes, correct. And they don't have the designation coming in.
Because they've done well.
They've done better in especially their special education subgroup. Their special ed subgroup did the growth they needed, and so they have not been identified. At this point, everything is on hold with all the testing, the MEA, because of the federal government is reviewing. We're asking for some amendments to our plan around identifying schools. So right now, Walton is the Tier 3 designation. That's why we're asking for 2 positions for Walton, because they won't have the same dollars coming to them as Washburn did.
I think it's important to note that Washburn and Walton are 2 of our schools with the highest mobility and highest poverty rate.
Exactly.
So we're constantly trying to keep these kids floating.
Exactly.
On it. So anybody says that we're not, we're very concerned about these 2 schools.
Right.
We've done various things over the years. Remember, Michelle, when we did Walton Academy?
Exactly.
And we've done things at
Yeah.
Washburn for a long time
Yeah.
on it. So
Yeah.
it's because of the mobility and the poverty rate.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to be sure that they remember that in our community.
Exactly. And we don't want teacher burnout, right? I mean,
Right.
these teachers, they need support. They need to feel valued, and that's a way to keep the teacher turnover rate in those schools down, is they see I have support. When I need a break, I have somebody that's going to take so-and-so for a little walk. And that's okay. They need that. Pat?
Why is there a discrepancy in the salary?
Yeah, so they're at different levels on the scale, basically. One of them has been with us longer. These are people that are actually in positions, so this is their actual salary.
Or they might take different health insurance
Yeah, different health
benefits.
insurance, right.
And
So
that
back
does include health
here,
insurance.
we don't know what that one will be, the Ed Tech 3 position, because we don't have anyone in that position. These 2 are people in our school district. Yeah. But yeah, if you take family, it's going to make a big difference if you take, yeah.
Didn't we increase, just as a, didn't we increase Ed Tech 3's, the salaries?
Yes, we did, yes.
So we should.
That
be-
helped.
So we should be more competitive.
Yes. So moving those grant positions in the general fund is $145,951.
We have to move them?
If we don't move them, we will lose them.
Okay.
Their SIG grant is supporting, I think, how many positions, Andrew? 1 position right now. Yeah.
Right now it's covering all of them. Next year, you have
That's right. Yeah. So next year, the funds have gone way down. And then the new district autism program is a teacher and 4 ed tech 2s, and that's a total of $206,000. Now, this is a wash. If we don't do the program, we have to put those dollars in the out-of-district tuition line.
Is it an even wash?
Well, we've talked about that, and it would be an even wash. We would move in 200,000 into the, I mean, that is an account that's the most volatile account, right? So, Ryan, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it really depends on the students.
Right, exactly.
Because they have the little services, so if they go out of district, if they don't have Maine care, one student can be up to 120,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Depending on the services.
Yeah.
So it can be anywhere between, we've seen in the past, with 4 kids, 320,000, anywhere between 230.
Right. Yeah, so this is, this really, you can't cut this program, basically. You either put the money in the out-of-district line, or you do the program.
And how many kids?
4 kids.
And to send them out of district for 4 kids, it would be $206,000.
Well, to do this, right, this is all estimating, and Ryan showed about a $12,000 savings doing the program. Ryan, come to the mic if you were going to say more than.
We've already gone through that.
Just want to mention as well that when I was asked to come in December to kind of put a program proposal together, I focused on the populations of students that we currently do not serve. So as of right now, there isn't a spot in any of the programs that we have, and we currently serve over 90 students in our programs across the district. Students with severe autism, we don't have a spot for them. They're never going to be able to be educated in our public schools in our programs with their non-disabled peers as of right now. So this program starts to solve that problem and give them opportunities to be with their non-disabled peers, to be interacting with them, to have more opportunities to go to school dances as they get older, because the hope is that we can build it over time. So it is a savings in money. It depends on student need, or it's an even wash. But if you don't do it, they'll never have an opportunity to be in our public schools.
So do we have space for this?
Yes.
In the
At
basement
Walton?
of Walton?
Not in the basement of Walton. We have talked to Mike. We're going to put them on the main level, down in the near the kindergarten wing, off to the right where the pre-K classroom is right now. There's a doorway outside, so we have fire safety issues solved there. We have a bathroom as well, and they're kind of in a quieter part, an appropriate part of the building, near the kindergarten wing.
You have 4 children that are going to be here. And are those 4 children are currently out of district now?
So we have slotted, right now I've identified in my observations 4 students that would fit the criteria for the program.
Yeah.
I still have more observations to do. We have 25 incoming, already identified special ed students coming into kindergarten next year. So we have students that are served in CDS from all their disabilities ranging from autism, speech language, other health impaired. So of the students, 7 of them have autism, and of the ones that I've observed so far, 4 of them are appropriate for the program.
So that's where we're getting the 4
Correct.
from new students?
Because when I looked at it in the years past, so the first year that I came in, you know, because we don't always know where these students are coming from, by the time the budget is set, those costs become unanticipated costs.
Right.
So 2 years ago, our unanticipated costs were well over $300,000. Last year, we're in the mid-200s. So, you know, it's possible right now, I'm estimating 4, we could have students move in from Lewiston. Right now, Lewiston is up almost at 100 incoming CDS kids right now. So some of those kids can move in over the summertime. So you just never know what you're going to get. But, you know, I've contacted about, at this point, 19 of the 25 parents. Of trying to have gone into homes, I've gone into preschools, I'm doing observations, I'm spending a ton of time making sure our staff gets to see each student so that we're well prepared and we have the right students in the right programs, not just for this program, but for other programs as well. But right now, I can anticipate at minimum 4. But if we go over that, if we have more kids that need more, then that's a conversation that we need to have. Also, I checked our ed tech rates currently. We're pretty comparable to Lewiston, but we don't pay as much as Margaret Murphy. So, maybe, I'd love, if we had more kids, I'd love to put more of them in the program, but the reality is I don't know if we could fill that many ed tech positions,
Yeah.
but we're going to.
Staffing's going to be the challenge.
Yeah. Well, I have an excellent personality, and I can convince people, so I'm excited about that.
What's the age group that you're able
Nobody
to?
laughed at that. That was funny.
I laughed.
Okay.
What's the age group that you can manage?
Kindergarten to, well, actually, I would be willing to take 4-year-olds because we could bill for them if possible in the future if we end up having an opening. And if, because I have a close relationship with the CDS director. So we could go as low as 4. So we can prepare for those students when they get to kindergarten. We can bill for them. But kindergarten to age 3. So 4-year-old to age 3. I mean, grade 3, sorry, grade 3.
Grade 3, yeah.
And that gives us time to plan. So my long-range plan is to expand this. 3 to 6, 6 and beyond. Long range, long term. And, right now we serve over 31 students in Margaret Murphy, and they do a great job. And we have a great partnership with them, and we always will. But it would be nice to have some more students back in our public schools.
But as this, it appears that it's about a 1-to-1 relationship?
Yes.
And if these students stay with Auburn next year, and we got more autism coming in, you'll be looking to expand it?
Yes, because either you expand it or they go out of district.
Right. And
So you're either at a wash or you're.
Out-of-district costs would have to be higher than
Correct.
hiring a new staff person.
Correct. Yes.
My question comes back to, are we going to have space?
As of right now, I can anticipate that. I can anticipate that we will. But as we move on, as they move up in age, we have that ability, and I've talked to Mike a little bit about this. He's got a really big basement area. And I could see grand plans for that for that basement area. But I mean, because we're going to have to. But we can improve it the way that it is. It actually is quite nice.
It is quite
quite-
nice.
it is quite
You just
nice.
can't put the kindergarten, first and second graders down there.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you can put the 3rd through 6th.
Right, kindergartens you can't.
Right. It is a nice place. They paint, it's nice. Yeah.
And again,
Is the air okay
with
down there?
planning.
It has big I mean, the windows aren't little
Good.
Right. But
window,
and not to mention, so if the community approves the new high school,
not to escape.
you are going to have an opportunity to have more space with RETC over time.
Right.
So if you move SOS, then that puts the whole either upstairs or downstairs floor
At Lake Street.
on Lake Street that you can use.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
So there's a lot of opportunity there. We just have to be thinking about it and, making a commitment for the future. And I think that we can do that, so.
So, the mayors will ask the question, what's our return on investment?
$12,000 savings.
I think our return on investment is going to be quickly foreseen. I mean, I've done this, and we're overdue. And I commend you on getting this started. You know that I've been asking for this for a long time. Our kids need to be educated in the community where they're going to return, so that they know people know them, and this is a start. You start small, and as you were saying, you start small, you know what you're doing, and then there's no question that we're going to receive a lot more students. And there may be a lot of students wanting to transfer to the district if they see that this is a good placement and is successful. And what we need to do is look for our space now. Look at the buildings, see what our space looks like, and start creating those spaces. That's what I did with CDS when I
Absolutely.
put the preschools here.
Absolutely.
And so if we do that, we know there's space, we know we've got places to go, and that return on investment will be very, very well received. You'll see it's going to save us a lot of money, because it is extremely expensive to send students elsewhere. I don't care where we send them.
It depends on how you want to answer that question.
Yeah.
So there's a financial saving. But, I've talked a little bit about this. I don't talk a lot about it, but we lost a student last year. Nobody knows who she is, or he is, because they were out of district. They were, and nobody will ever know who they are. And I went to the funeral. I cried. And it made me think about, the student moved in from another community right before the start of school. I could have put them potentially at our EDD program, but it would have been it would have been a lot of work, and I wanted to do what was best for the family, but I've really struggled with that decision. So having children with unique talents that are different, it's not about money. It's about our community, it's about the world we want to live in, and who we want to be. And I think it doesn't, you can't put a price tag on it. So
I realize that it's not all about money, okay? I thoroughly understand that, and I understand what we need to do. That's not my issue on it. It's just a tight budget. How
understood.
on it. So I just want to be sure we.
The bottom line is you're going to save money, or you're going to be even if you put them in the buildings.
Okay, so we're going to do 4 this year.
We're going to do, the goal is to do 4. We're focusing on a disability area that we currently don't serve.
Right.
Sorry, I don't want to take them more at a time.
Your figures of the last time that you showed it to us did show that we would be saving $13,098. So we're starting with that.
Yep.
And so right there, there's a savings. So let's go from there. I'm all for this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So it's conceivable that we would still have other students that might have to be out of district? Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got to, like you said, start slow and small. This cohort may move together in first grade and we don't add anyone. I mean, we've got to figure out, do we have an effective teacher? Do we have the ed tech support that we need? We're not just going to add to save money, as you say. We're going to make sure we're doing it well before we expand it. So we may come back and just say we're maintaining and not adding to, depending on how well the program goes.
Absolutely.
If it goes well, we may say, well, let's add 1 or 2 students. We're going to have to watch how it works. This is our first time kind of doing this type of program. It's like the BI programs started with 1, and then it grew to 2, and then it grew to 3. It didn't happen overnight.
Right. There are other opportunities to save money as well as the program starts to grow, and if it gets stronger, you can look at converting your Ed Tech 2s to Ed Tech 3s, making them BHPs. You then can hire a BCBA, which is billable under Section 26. Section 28. And then you could bill for those services. We're currently not set up to bill because the upfront cost for that is going to be much more. And I want to make sure that the principles of ABA are established and that the way that we design the program and adhere to ABA principles is firm, and we can do that internally. But as we start to expand, I could see us, needing to hire more staff, but with that, hiring this right staff that we could bill. So we could generate revenue, essentially, which could be not only just cost savings, but generate revenue.
Well,
Are we going to always take in kindergarten kids first?
I think that would be my preference, is to look at the age 4-year-olds and the kindergartners, that keep them out, if possible, out of other, because what happens is right now, CDS is basically a mechanism that places students into different preschools. So if you just have a speech issue, they'll find you a speech clinician. They don't provide it themselves. So there are specialized preschools around the area. ELC, which is up the road on Minot Avenue. There's ELS, which has 2 facilities, one in Livermore, and then there's Margaret Murphy as well. So if a student comes in at 2 years old that has severe autism, or comes in at 3 and they're identified, and they move in and they're identified, CDS will look to find a placement. So oftentimes it's Margaret Murphy. They'll be placed there when they get to school-aged. Then they either stay there. It would be nice to be able to say, well, we, at a placement meeting and say, wait a minute, we're going to make this decision. One of the things in anticipating that, I have told our staff we are no longer going to amend IEPs coming from CDS in the spring. We're going to write our own. And that way we're doing our own observations. So I have spent probably 50 hours creating Google Docs and scanning everything and putting a schedule together, making sure that we're observing it. So we're putting our eyes on our students. We're better prepared for them. And we are writing a plan that identifies their correct services, where they're going to go to school and what program they're going to be in. We're not simply amending it and simply saying, you're the professional, you know the student. We're going to say, no, we've done the observations. We've talked to the family. We've built these relationships. We can provide the programming. So I've really spent a lot of time doing that and building those relationships with families and saying, talking about the program. I update them, tell them where they're at in the timeline. And so our meetings for those transition meetings will happen in late March and April and May.
And by school age definition, using special services definition, students ages 4 and 5 are regular elementary age.
5 and above.
5 and above?
Right, so at 4 years
You're not
old.
using the 4?
No, the 4-year-olds are still kindergarten. 4-year-olds can go in our public preschools.
Right.
And we
because
could
they're
bill
under
for
the
them,
public
but they're
preschool's
not, but they
IEP.
would not be, they're on IEPs, but they're covered under CDS.
Right.
Where our responsibilities start when they enter kindergarten on September 1.
Yeah.
Or whenever the first day of school is.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Just reviewing the cost center, so our total budget increase is $2 million with a 4.7% increase. So this accounts for, as I said to you, 98% is the salary and benefit increases of that $2 million. But you can see, you know, the largest increase is at regular instruction because that's where the largest amount of staff live, and then you see how all of the others fall out. Anyone have questions on cost centers at all?
Question on what?
On the cost centers?
Not the cost centers, but I do have a few things
Sure.
I'll talk about later once we
Okay.
get through. Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
The ED 279 highlights, so that is how we receive our funding through the state. So I've highlighted rather than going through it because it's quite the formula. So what I'm highlighting are the things that were reduced and increased and where we had increases and where we had decreases. So we had a reduction in our enrollment of approximately 30 students. So that's going to impact us. We also had a reduction of economically disadvantaged of 65 students. And that can vary on how DHHS is classifying them. So everybody seemed to have a little, when I talked to other superintendents, this seemed to be an area, because we're the universal breakfast and lunch, we get our lists from DHHS, and so some of those classifications shifted a little bit this year, and so we were down in that. So because of that, when they total and calculate, you know, per pupil, we did have a decrease of $265,000 in our operating allocation total. It wasn't only because of that, there were other things, but you know, if you go line by line, we were up in some lines, down in other lines, but overall, we had a reduction of $265,000. We had an increase, however, in gifted and talent expenditures for 17-18. We had an increase in special education allocation. We had an increase in bus purchases. We had 4 buses. So next year, we'll see a decrease in the bus purchase allocation because we're putting 3 buses in rather than 4 buses. So factoring all of that in, we had an increase of $1,116,000 in other subsidizable costs. So when you take in a reduction in operation, but then you see the other costs were increase, it all kind of worked out. The other thing is because we're part of the Regional Service Center with SAD 52, Turner, Leeds and Green, and MSA SAD 16, Poland, Mechanic Fall, and Minot, we did receive additional funding. We have not put any expenditures toward those dollars except for a small minor expenditure to pay for Lewiston oversees the Regional Service Center in doing the business office, and they also serve an executive director role. So we get a small, I think it was like $600. So the other is just money we have that's going towards our total allocation. But remember that the reason that money is available is because they've lowered the system administration per pupil. Last year we received $92 per student. This year we received $47, which was a $164,000 reduction in system administration calculation. So even though we had, you see, oh, we got some regional service center dollars, great. Well, we had also a reduction in system administration dollars. Okay, so they just move, you know, it's moving the funds around, right? And there are bills in the legislation around the whole regional service center. So we'll see what happens with that. But we are still, we continue to meet and discuss things that we are going to do together. The Auburn's evaluation as a city, increased by $322,000. So they take the evaluation 3-year average, and so that did have a slight increase. However, the state mill rate expectation was reduced. So last year, it was multiplied, the evaluation was multiplied by $8.48. This year, it's being multiplied against $8.28. So that caused a reduction in the required local contribution of $426,000. So it's another shell, right? They lowered the mill rate to help the local dollars. Now, what that does is, remember, you get a total amount that they will fund. They deduct off what the local contribution should be, and that's how much you get for state. So first comes the total, then comes the local comes off of that, and then you get the state. So our state contribution increased by $1.2 million. So even though we had a reduction in local contribution, the state makes up for that because it's the difference between the total and the local contribution. And you're going to see more numbers on that later, okay? I have more slides. But those are just highlights from our two ED 279s. You'll see how that plays out with taxes. The fund balance is always a question, so we've added to this slide that for last year, so in June 30th, 2018, we had $1.9 million in our fund balance. We put $719,000 towards our budget. That leaves us with $1.2 million fund balance. Now, we'll be audited June 30th, 2019, so that will increase. So we're starting with $1.2 million towards the fund balance for next year. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So remember, we did better than we thought we were going to do, and I'll talk about that later. So overall, our local contribution needed. So Adam, did you print those, the revenue?
Yep. So
Okay.
the multicolor sheet that should be on top of your pile
Okay.
is
So
the revenue sheet.
Adam, and I'm going to just do an overview, and then Adam you can project. I'll come down and you can project that, what they're looking at.
Set up to project.
All right, I'll project it.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go through that in a minute, but let me just do overview. So last year, we asked for $17.9 million. This year, we're asking for $18.4 million. Now, that's the local side, but the state revenue will play a factor in this. The state revenue went up $1.5 million. Okay. So, and then our other revenue went up $34,000. We used the same fund balance that we did last year of $719,000. So our budget is at $45,762,834. Remember the cost centers? We were up $2 million. That's the $2 million increase from last year, is that cost center was up $2 million. So what we need from the local is go back, we're up $483,000. So we're asking for local $483,968 over last year, which is a 2.69% increase, which right now, based on the city's evaluation, we're anticipating that that may go up, which will bring the mill rate down. So right now, it's 25 cents to cover the $468,000 we're asking for. Now, in addition, we heard today that the health insurance will, probably good news is we will see a decrease there. So that could even be lower than $468,000 if you want us to apply all of the insurance savings to reducing the mill rate. And that's something you all need to discuss.
You're going to know that tomorrow, did you say?
We will know that first thing tomorrow. So you might say, well, we would like to bring down that $483,000. Okay. Last year, you were at 0 coming in. Last year's budget did not have an increase. It ended up having a slight increase to the mill rate due to valuation of the city going down. We're anticipating it will go up. That will lower that mill rate, but we won't know that for a couple months. I talked to the city manager, and we won't know the valuation number.
So, out of a $45 million budget,
Correct.
we only have an increase of $483,000
To the local,
to the local.
to the local. The
Right.
state funds are picking up the rest. Yes.
So to the
And other revenue.
taxpayers, it's an increase of $483.
Right, which is a quarter. All right, so I'm going to come down and pull up what you have in front of you, and Adam can take us through that. I just got to go back to it.
And we have new programs, and we have
Yeah,
new,
you're doing a lot for that
New
small of an increase.
negotiations.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
And at this
It's similar to
moment-
what we did last year, by the way. When I was doing the slides, the increase is almost identical to last year, before we went to zero. I want to go to, yeah, all right, so I'm coming. Because I didn't want, in case people saw stuff that, you never know
So
what's
I think
gonna
you've all
show
got it in
up.
front of you, so while she's bringing that up, I'll just start to walk through what we've got. So starting at the top, first we have the general fund, and the first two lines are the state subsidy amount, and the state debt service amount that pays for the state portion of the Park Ave project. So overall, that's the light blue line with a budget-to-budget increase of $1.5 million, or 6.3% in state funds for general fund.
Does everybody see where we are? So we're talking about all the state subsidy here. Okay.
Then next, we have the local, and that first line is the minimum local. As Katie mentioned, because the state mill rate went down, it decreased our so-called required local amount by $426,000. The debt service is up from 44 to 140,000, because that incorporates not only our part of the Park Ave project, but it also incorporates the funds that we're using for the 2 classroom expansion. So those are from previously bonded CIP, but we're allowed to call it major capital debt, and it puts it in that line. The next line you see is the additional local. So this would be local funds used that are above and beyond what's required in the state formula. So that's an increase of 800,000, and all in all, 1.78 million above the minimum required. So the purple line shows the total local increase of $477,000 for general fund, or 2.68%. And if you're wondering why that doesn't match what you just heard, there's an adult ed piece down below that will factor in.
So
Next
tell us
is,
what the additional
sorry,
local
Bonnie.
is.
It's down here.
The additional local
Is the,
is the local funds raised for the budget above and beyond what the state says is the minimum required local amount to get your full state subsidy. And other is everything else that we get as a revenue source. And every year we look at these and try to project what we might get in the next year without putting ourselves in a hole by over budgeting. So we receive funds as a reimbursement for any state agency clients who we provide services to. The SOS program, if we have any out-of-district students, we receive tuition for that. Maine Care reimbursement is funds that we receive back for services that we're providing from the state. Secondary tuition is tuition from Lewiston for Franklin students, and they're currently paying for 17 slots. Rental properties is the rent on the RETC facility. Auburn owns the facility, and the RETC program, which is actually in its own fund, rents that building from Auburn. $50,000 from daycare. We've kept that amount flat for many years, but that's to cover the cost of custodial staff, utilities, et cetera, throughout the building that they don't pay as part of their program budget. CDS pre-K, we haven't received money on that for several years. Miscellaneous is just that. It's any other stuff that comes in for refunds or anything else we might get goes into that line. So altogether, those other lines are up by $34,000 or 6.96%. Fund balance, you remember last year we had a lot of discussion about fund balance. We tried to really bring down our use of fund balance. At the end of the day, we went to zero and we ended up using $719,000. We felt, given the budget situation, that we needed to stay with the same amount as much as we'd like to use less and try to build up that fund balance to at least 3%. So that's flat. So overall, looking at general fund, it's up by $2 million, as Katie discussed earlier. Next is adult education, which is a very tiny slice of the overall pie, but it is a separate category from the general fund. So it's been broken out on this year's sheet. The state, we're budgeting the same amount of subsidy we received this year, which was $94,000. So that's about a 2% increase from the prior year. The local amount required for things like salary and benefit increases went up about $6,800 or 3.6%. And then the amount of tuition being budgeted is flat. That's the same amount we've budgeted for the last several years. So all in all, adult ed's budget is up $9,000 or 2.4%. At the bottom, we have the grand total of the general fund and adult ed, and that's so on the state side, increase of 1.5 million or 6.3%. The local, that's the number Katie mentioned earlier, 483,000 or 2.69%, and all other 34,000 or 5.85%, for a grand total budget 45,762,834, a $2 million increase or 4.74% overall. And at the bottom, you'll see the state valuation. We use the same number because we won't know that, 1,964,000 for a projected mill rate of $9.41, which is a 25-cent increase. We believe that's worst case scenario. We believe the valuation won't go down again. So to put it in context, the impact on a home valued at $150,000, the annual increase for this budget would be about $37.
Adam? Excuse me. Adam?
Yes.
On our secondary tuition, did we fill all the slots at Franklin this year?
You mean secondary, or are you talking about?
Well,
The secondary tuition is Franklin. They pay for 17 slots, so yes.
They actually paid for the 17 slots?
Yes, they paid for them.
Yes.
Yep.
Did they fill them?
Yes. Right now, they're at 16, but they go up and down. Okay. And we are having a meeting on that, whether we will have a guaranteed tuition of the 17. We're talking. They definitely have 11 students next year. So we know that we will bring in that revenue. Whether we will have a tight one of 17, we may get more. If they end up putting 19 in, we'd be charging up to 19. So we're working with Lewiston to continue that partnership.
Thank you.
And there is some legislation in Augusta that could conceivably give us more money, correct?
I mean, the budget hasn't been settled,
Right.
so we never know.
Like they're talking about the $40,000 teacher salary?
Yes, and they're talking about whether that they would bridge districts. So we're not at 40,000, we're at about 36,000. So they're talking about what will it mean if they move to 40,000 and how that all plays out. It wouldn't necessarily help us because it would bridge us to pay those employees who don't have 40,000 to get to 40,000. If anything, it keeps us from not having to raise our budget to meet that minimum requirement. So I think part of the bill is, does the state have funds to help districts meet
Right.
that? Yes. So,
Yes, please.
I have a few things, thank you.
Sure.
Now that I have, one of my questions was going to be, the increase of the local share, and you've given us those figures. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
As far as the city side, the mayor's side goes, we have a few goals that I'd like to share with you at this time.
Sure.
And based on, because I've been looking at Governor Mills' expenditures, and based on the recommendation that she puts forth for the intent for the city and the school, we should be aiming for an overall cost of inflation to be below the CPI and reducing the cost to taxpayers. This is like really considering what's happening down the road. We're saving for a lot of money for a big school. So keeping that in mind, as we work toward that, when the time comes and people start paying the taxes, we're going to have 3 budgets to add to that. And I've been saying that all along, and I'm going to keep saying that. So I want to make sure that we're aware of that. Another one is we really need to keep the levy to the taxpayers flat, 0, and this is what's coming from the mayor and the city, 0 impact. If the revenue sharing is forthcoming, it may be, it looks like kind of positive, so we can't say that right now, we're not sure. If it's positive, the city strongly recommends applying this to the local cost for the new ELHS. And I think that would be wisely spent that way. And last but not least, hopefully, if municipal and school are to receive any money, as Bob has mentioned, from the state, we need to be cautious not to spend before the money is there. So these are just a few things for us to consider.
So what's the what is the percent then that everyone's shooting for? Are they shooting for 0 or the CPIU?
Okay.
CPI.
What is it, Dan?
0.
Dan's hearing 0, not CPIU.
Yeah, CPI, yeah, 0.
You're saying CPIU and he's saying 0. That's
Well,
two
zero.
different-
CPI, 0 CPI, not CPI.
CIU is not 0.
The CPIU is not 0.
City shooting for 0.
Yeah, city's shooting for 0.
So
I'm
it's
just
not,
curious.
okay, all right.
0 impact to the taxpayer when all of the figures come in.
Okay, so reducing the 583,968.
Yeah.
That number. Okay.
So when all those figures get changed, and I'll come in and then look at it again.
Okay.
So the question, I'll jump in, Tom.
Tony
The
Madden.
question is, do you want us to apply the increase for health insurance to the 483,968?
I want to see what it is before we apply it.
Yeah,
I want to see the amount on it before we go.
What amount, what are you thinking?
We were 0 last year.
Yeah?
We've had some heavy illnesses. Maybe half of it.
And what would you do with the other half?
We could always find a place to put the other half.
I'm just,
I off the top of my head, I would not
no,
know,
I
but
mean,
that's
we
why
have
I
to be,
rely
we
on
have to
you
be
and Matt.
prepared. The city council's going to say, if you don't come in at 0,
Well,
don't come in.
we're increasing positions here, and we have
Right.
to remember that.
Yeah.
And we're increasing a special ed program, which is not costing us, it's saving us $13,000 right now. So if we're adding in positions and we have monies, we need to really consider, the taxpayer and ELHS.
The other place that we're in negotiations,
Right.
and some of that could go into negotiations too, to help us fund our salaries increases that we're offering.
I think there are still a lot of balls in the air regarding
Yes,
where
Tom.
we'll end up financially. The city evaluation, for one,
Right.
what the rest of the city departments are going to need for funding, where we're going to end up on negotiations, what the health premium is going to end up being. I don't think I don't think we need to come to any decision this evening.
Right.
But keeping in mind that there may be some available monies through a health savings, which we should know tomorrow, if we were to apply those either to reduce the local impact, take it from 25 cents lower, or have we got a better use of that today that would benefit our students and help the education of Auburn, that would justify using that and staying at the 25 or bringing it down some balance of that. I think that's the next consideration once we have that number. It also will be impacted by whatever the city valuation ends up being. So I believe our valuation is going up, which will only bring this mill rate down.
Just a little piece of information, the manager presented a really good slideshow and showed us what, I think you've seen it, the evaluation going up, but yet the exemptions offset that. So our true evaluation is not up there. So we needed to look at what that new figure is, and looking at all the exemptions that we apply to that, it does reduce it. So it's a false,
Oh, yeah.
Number.
Right.
Any other questions? We're going to have a workshop.
Well, maybe everybody could weigh in on what, only because on Monday we see city council. What do you want presented to city council in that insurance savings? I guess is what I'm asking.
You're asking where that, if there's insurance savings.
So I heard Bonnie say it's going to depend on the amount. I mean, that's what you're saying.
I think there are two things.
Yeah,
You've got CIP coming up.
Yep.
And we're going to use $200,000 of CIP money to put into a balance for the new high school, which means we're not proposing to fund as many projects because we're taking that money out of our normal budget.
Right.
Well, this money could also be applied to some of those necessary projects. So I don't know that I would be going to the city council Monday saying, well, we've got this increase and we're going to do this with it, because depending on how much money it is, it may fund the $200,000 of CIP that we have had to reduce in order to meet that need.
There may be some, some of that towards CIP. I mean, I understand. I really feel badly about the fact that these schools will be on hold for 3 years or whatever. And I don't want to see our, buildings start going downhill, and then when it comes time that we have to start working on them, it'll be even more costly. So I think that that's a good goal, and looking at what the projects are to say which ones have the highest priority. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Which one has, not all of them, but which ones have the highest priority that's going to impact the functionality of the building and the value of the buildings.
I'm speaking with confidence that I would not have, nor would Adam have recommended the $200,000 for Edward Little if we thought it would hurt the other buildings. We did not go in with that thinking. We believe the $200,000 will and can support. Now, the concern will be that City Council will lower our CIP dollars to a place that makes it not advantageous to do the $200,000. We don't know that yet. They know where we're coming in. They've already have our number. The city manager knows we're coming in at $1.6 million for requests for next year. We received $1.5 million this year. We're hoping to maintain the $1.5 million. What? 1.6. Yeah, 1.6. We had 1.6 this year. So we're hoping to get the same amount that we received this year.
But,
so, and I guess the question would be, something you need to be thinking about is to get to zero, if that's the possibility, is where are you going to look at those new positions and reducing those new positions? So so a question would be, is we knew what the health insurance was when we put the budget together, would we put a different budget together? And my answer would probably be no, to be honest. I mean, that's the truth. We went with the needs of the district, and so that I'm just putting that out there.
I think you should go to reduce the impact on the taxes.
Yeah, I do too.
All of it.
Bob?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Pat?
Pat?
I think I need to think about this some more, but let's just say that it's 200,000 comes out. They want to give that money to the taxpayer, but if we put it into the budget, it's doing the same thing, right? Am I mixed up in what I'm
A
thinking?
little bit. They're saying if we have a savings in the premium, then apply that to the local contribution, the need of local contribution, which would reduce it, so it would reduce the mill rate. So we wouldn't collect from the local taxpayer that amount of money we saved from the premium. My concern right now is that we should be funding $2 million annually to maintain our buildings. I mean, that was a number that we had 8 years ago, I think, and we've been underfunding that. We have done very well with the projects we have done. If we get a windfall, so to speak, from the premium savings, I would want to look again at either fully funding the projects at the $2 million that we would hope to have, and you take the savings from the premium and you put it into the EL fund. I don't know if we can legally do that. Can we hold that money?
The city would, I believe the school committee and city would have to vote to establish a reserve account, which they could do.
Yeah.
But it would be, those votes would have to happen.
So we're able to hold it within the capital improvements money budget, that line items, because of excess funds, and we're going to allocate $200,000 towards it within the capital improvement funds at this point.
Capital
each year.
improvement funds stay within their fund, they don't expire, so that's why we're able to go back and say, we're going to allocate
Special fund.
X amount of dollars to the high school or whatever, or Park Ave or whatever it is. Whereas with general fund, the budget is the budget, it's tied to the fiscal year.
Right.
What could be done, in theory, if you wanted to, is the school committee and the council could vote to transfer an amount from fund balance and create a reserve fund.
Are you done?
I think so. What, you're saying to put the money in the CIP, and I think I would put it in, if there was money left over from the insurance, that I would put it against the needs that Katie had suggested. Right now.
And actually, I agree with you. I think that we've got a new program starting in special ed. We need to fund other things in the system. I would present this budget and take the 200 or whatever we don't know. This is hypothetical.
Yes.
It could be $2.
I'm just trying to be proactive. I'm just trying to be proactive.
Katie, we haven't even seen what the city's coming in for a
Right.
budget. They haven't either.
No, I realize that. What I'm saying is we budgeted 12% not knowing where insurance would be. Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand that.
Because it could have been we budgeted 3% and it comes in at 6%, and I would be saying to you, I now have to add 200,000 in. We chose 12%, and we're anticipating coming in below that. So that's what I'm just trying to be proactive that the city council is going to know on Monday the reduction in our health insurance.
So go back and do your budget over again with the reduction of it. Just go back and whatever it is going on, if we get $200,000 in savings, go back and redo your budget.
I would try to hold on to what we have, what we've proposed. Because if you look back to...
But you got 200,000 more, or whatever the
Okay,
figure
no,
is to add to it.
but remember,
Go back and do your...
let's go back for a minute. The new positions are 438,400. The shift is 145,951. Okay? So you could argue that the 206,000 has to be in the budget. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're up 206,000 automatic.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say if you applied the health insurance to the 468,000, the argument of us coming up is coming up because of that special ed program, which is true. I mean, you could say it's a
How
new
much are we
position. You could
coming
say
up?
whatever.
Are we coming up what is it, 2.9? So are we coming up 1.5?
Well, we won't know until I have the insurance.
Gotta get the
Like, if I
With the
applied the
program.
insurance to the 483,968,
All right, if we didn't have the program,
correct? Yeah,
what, we would be half that, so we would be
Right.
1.5.
Would be in tuition.
right. It
I
would
beg
be
your
in
pardon?
it would be in the tuition.
Those funds
but-
would be in tuition, so
But you
really,
could subtract the
The
201.
funds will be there. They'll already be there, minus $13,000.
But our budget would be up $201,000
Right.
locally to pay for that. what I'm saying?
Right.
Either way, the budget
Either way, the
has to
budget's
go
gonna go
up
up.
with that special ed program.
right.
Correct.
It could go up more depending on if they
Well, it
ended up
depends
being
on
You could
how many
cut
students.
other positions to hold that, yes.
No, we could have, we could have, by the time school begins, as he said, 25 more students with
Right.
autism.
I mean, that's
That's gonna, we never can count
Never
those
can
chickens
count.
before they
Right.
hatch anyway, so.
So go back to
Exactly.
from the general to from the
Which one?
grants to the general.
145.
Right, 100.
145,951.
Is there one of those that we could take and say, we're going to keep in the fund, in the grant position?
No,
and
the
not put-
grant's-
No.
The grant's gone, so we can't
Grant's
do
gone, you
anything.
can't, yeah.
It would be rather, okay, I think you don't have to I think what Tom, you don't have to face the zero yet because we're not there yet.
Right.
You, even with the applying a savings in insurance, you're not going to be at zero. So that's why I was asking, do you want me to apply the insurance to get it as close to zero as we can and then make the argument that we need everything in this budget? Then we may have to come back and reduce. I don't know where city council is going to go. We don't know the city manager's budget. We don't know the mill rate evaluation yet. We don't know those things. It's whether we're committed to the new positions, we're committed to the grant positions, and we're committed to the special ed dollars, right?
I think we stay committed to those.
So that's why I'm asking if the insurance reduction goes towards the local, we have at least reduced it, and we're probably close to the CPIU, or, if, we don't know what is coming in yet. To be honest, I know, but I don't know I don't know the definitive, to be honest.
correct.
So I don't even want to guess. Don't even want to guesstimate.
Well, actually, it's 483 now.
Okay.
So tomorrow, if I apply it towards the local, I will send that out to all of you so you can see how close is it. There?
You can see what the impact is.
What's the impact?
We will know tomorrow the dollar amount.
We will know.
Of that.
You go check your emails and faxes now and see if it's there.
It won't be there till tomorrow.
No, they told us.
I've been assured of that.
They told us, because they don't want to they didn't want to give it to us and not give it to everybody in fairness, and I get that. It wouldn't be fair that Auburn gets it because they're under high pressure to their budget. So Adam negotiated as best he could, and we're getting it tomorrow.
Okay.
So, but what I'll do is I'll reduce the slides to put it in. I'm hearing somewhat hesitation, but somewhat support to put it towards the local, so that we can hold on to all that we want.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Bob?
I
What do you-
agree.
Elfrida?
I agree.
Dan? Pat? Bonnie? Tom? Yeah, I know, you're probably here, yeah. Okay, so that's what I'll plan to do. I'll send it to you. I'll ask you to, we can't have conversations about it tomorrow over online, right? We got to be good. Just email me, yes, go forward to city council with the changes, okay?
No conversation.
No conversation, you're just going to email me, yes, I can live with this going to city council. If not, I can say we're not presenting on Monday, okay? So if I don't get consensus, we won't present on Monday,
Okay,
okay?
sounds good.
All right. Well, we have 10 minutes to take a little break and grab a
Take a
snack.
break, yep, grab a snack.
Thank you, everyone.
Michelle, could you do me a favor?
There we go, we're up. Bonnie,
We're
you
on.
can stay right there. We'll begin this meeting with a pledge of allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, we see them fall down.
Bob, can we start with you for introductions?
Bob Manili, Ward 1.
Bonnie Hayes, Ward 2.
Tom Kendall, Ward 3.
Katie Gronin, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier at large.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Elfrida Fournier, Mayor's Rep, Ward 4.
Michelle McClellan, Assistant Superintendent.
Adam Hansen, Business Manager.
And communications. Anyone received communications they'd like to share with the, oh, look at that. Bonnie, do you have one too?
Go ahead, whoever said
You
it.
can go first.
You go first, because Katie.
I just want to say congratulations to all the sports teams. They might not have come in number one in all their endeavors, but they certainly did us proud. They were in the finals in most cases, and I thought that they had done a wonderful job, and their coaches too.
Thank you.
Here, thank you.
I'd like to piggyback, those that came in number 2 and number 3 also did extremely well.
Anyone else with a comment before we turn it over to Katie? Katie, what have you got?
Okay, and so I'm sending you an email tomorrow. This is with heavy heart, but Kim Taylor is stepping down. As you know, Kim had a big life-changing event happen to her a couple years ago when she lost her husband at a very young age, and of course that impacts your family for the rest of their lives. So she's going to take an opportunity to spend time with her children and she has purchased a camper, an RV, and they are going to be traveling across the country next year. You have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and she's taking it. So I want to give her a hand for being a risk taker tonight. It's a big loss for Sherwood Heights, but like I told Kim, when she comes back, and we have a place for her. So she means a lot to us. So I've already, I met with her team leaders. Kim was there this afternoon to start the process around her replacement. So if you're interested in serving on the interview committee, we will be doing applications through April. That will start posting in about a week or two. And then we'll interview and get a candidate. So we're hopeful, but it's very sad for everybody, and I know it's sad for her too.
So she has children in the system.
She does.
So has she filed a homeschool program?
Oh, believe me, the poor children will be online at night doing their studying. What's nice is she has very good students for children, so she's going to keep them on their toes, learning, and we'll bring her back.
Well, I would like to be on the committee. I was on the committee that hired her. So, and it wasn't that many years ago, so I would like to.
She's been there 5 years.
Yep, 5.
Yeah. And they're in a great place for someone new, and she's going to make sure of that. She's already told me I have a file. I hope you hire them soon so I can train and work with them. So
Good, good. Hope you have fun.
yeah.
I'm sure you will.
Good luck and thank you.
And she'll be blogging, so we'll have to watch her blog. She did that when she adopted her daughter, and we loved reading all the stories, so I'm sure it'll be similar.
Very good. The next item is the consent agenda, which is the approval of this agenda, the minutes of our March 6th meeting, and the secondary probationary contract renewals of Darren Avery.
Yes.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Public participation? I'm not seeing, other than the wonderful public that is here tonight, they're probably not going to step forward.
outstanding
Yeah,
staff.
the staff that is there, I'm sure they're not going to jump forward. Their staff. So we can move right on to the superintendent's report, which is the business and our capital improvements plan.
Right, so Adam is going to run through this CIP plan. This is being presented on Monday night with the city manager. Remember, get there by 6:15 and you should be safe, since we're the last agenda item. So this is kind of a run-through also for our presentation on Monday. Adam.
Thank you. And I'll ask Billy Hunter to come on up to the table so he can chime in as we go through this. So what I handed out to you is the slides from PowerPoint for notes, and then the actual report that we'll be submitting to the city, which discusses the 5-year plan. This presentation will focus on what we're planning to do next year. Because every year, Billy and I look at this, we discuss with Katie and the principals, and we prioritize our needs. So that's what this reflects. Just a reminder, these are the long-term goals we always use in putting the plan together. We want to maintain our facilities for health, safety, and structural soundness, increase our energy efficiencies when possible. Goal number 3, replace Edward Little High School, and I'm happy to say that the major list of Edward Little High School improvements that we've always shown hanging out there in the future, I deleted those this year. Those are no longer there because we're looking forward to a brand new building. So before I start, I just should say for the record that it's a pleasure to put this list together and to see the wonderful shape that our buildings are in. Billy and his staff are to be commended for the job that they do, keeping up with the buildings. And I've had many comments from outside contractors at what good shape our buildings are in. So it was a pleasure to put this list together with that in mind. So here's what we have planned for projects and equipment for next fiscal year. I broke these into 2 categories. First, we'll call Priority 1, which address critical safety or operational needs. Number 1, this is the amount that we've been discussing for the last few weeks as approved by the school committee and recommended by the city council in a resolve that the first $200,000 of the CIP for next year be allocated to the local cost of the new Edward Little High School. That would be on top of $600,000. We have an existing CIP that we are earmarking for the project, and we'll be requesting another $200,000 next year, and that'll account for $1 million of the local cost to go with the up to $15 million in local bonds. On the technology side, we have 3 servers that are really at the hub of what we do in central office that need to be replaced. They're at or beyond their useful lifespan. One server is for the finance software system that basically powers everything we do in the business office. One is the remote access server that allows our staff to access the finance software from their Apple computers, as well as staff to log in from outside of the building. And the third is the employee self-service server that allows our staff to log in and request their days off electronically, as well as to see their W-2 information and things like that. You can see one of them is 8 years old this year, and the other 2 will be 10 years old. And one of them is running into the end of life on the Microsoft Windows version, and it'll no longer be supported. So it's time to replace those, and those 3 machines will be repurposed elsewhere in the district.
Adam, I think we heard from the city that they have been moving off local servers and onto the cloud. This is not proposing that the school department follow that lead. Is there a reason?
Good question, Tom. That's correct. We've looked at that periodically over the years, and Peter and I actually looked at it again probably 6 months ago or so. We got a quote, and we got some information on what it would cost to move our finance software into the cloud, and we can do it much, much more cheaply on our own, through our own server. Because we do have good qualified staff to maintain those servers, we're in good shape. We'd be looking at 3 to 4 times the cost to move our finance software to the cloud. So it's something we'll continue to look at periodically, but at this time, none of us felt that it made sense.
So 3 to 4 times to move it. After it's moved, is there a savings?
No.
No.
It costs more annually because you're paying annually a support fee to the company, whereas with the server, it's in-house. We're using our own staff to keep it going.
And to follow up a little bit with what Tom said is that it has been discussed that we need to combine services with the city, and they always say computer, finances, on it. So is this something, then the computer is out because it would cost too much money to combine?
Well, speaking to what I can speak best to, which is the finance software,
Yeah.
we have a different software package than the city. It's built specifically for schools, and it does a great job for what we need it to do. The city uses a program called Munis, and as you can tell from the name of it, it's built for municipalities and it does a lot, but it's not designed to do what the school department needs. And so we've discussed that, but staying with our current software is the best fit for the school department.
Okay, can they combine anything onto our servers? We don't always have to go there. Can they
Right.
come here?
I guess I'll look to Peter to answer that because I wouldn't be able to do so intelligently. Sorry, Peter, you knew you'd end up coming up front.
Money, then we could charge.
Right.
So, I mean, these servers are designed to support our entire staff across all of our buildings accessing our financial software. I mean, we certainly can have the conversation, but I think that what you'd find is that their servers are custom built to serve their needs, and if you'd have to spend more money to have a larger server that could accommodate both.
And the remote access, we can't combine with the remote access?
The remote access piece is really primarily to allow our administrators who are using Macs to access the finance software which runs on Windows. The city doesn't have that issue because they don't use Macs.
And employee self-service, is that's substitutes, did you say?
Employee self-service is a web server that allows our employees to log in, request time off, get some of their financial forms, update their name, address, that kind of thing.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure that we can't combine that service with them on it. And I hear you loud and clear, both of you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
One more question. I'm glad Ms. Hayes asked that question because, for example, in my case, I have one account for the city and another account for the school, and they're both very different, so I have to navigate two different programs. At any point in time, is that feasible? I know we're not Macs at the city, and Macs is a school, what the school is using, and I've always used Macs in school. So it's a real big learning curve, and is that a possibility?
So I assume you're referring to email in that regard. So I believe the city uses Microsoft Exchange, which they would be paying a subscription for. We are using G Suite for Education, which is free. So
okay, free's good.
That is not a cost for us at all
Good.
to provision those email accounts.
Yeah.
But can Elfrida have the two accounts merged so she's not looking at both, or should she look them up separately?
Forward one.
The only thing you could do would be forward from one to the other.
So that might be an idea, Elfrida.
I'll have to work on that.
Yeah.
We can help you with that.
Upward
learning curve. Whoop.
But you could talk to Peter about what would make sense. So you don't feel like you're looking.
I'll set an appointment and see. Thank you.
Walton School bleachers, this is one that Katie and Billy and I have discussed a lot, and we're very excited to put this on the list, and with the hope of doing it this summer. It's time to replace these bleachers with something safer, something handicapped accessible, and something that people can walk up and enjoy a game and feel safe doing so. And so in discussing replacing them, we met with the city rec department. We actually all went over there and visited Walton, discussed our thoughts about not only now, but 5-10 years in the future. And everyone agreed that replacing these with a modern set of bleachers, but that we could also downsize a little bit, and that would be appropriate. And so the set of bleachers that we've gotten an estimate for would reduce the seating from roughly 700-ish right now to about 513. And in speaking with Mr. Neer and Mr. Sampson, everyone felt that would be adequate to meet our needs. What we have to remember is we have 4 to 5 more seasons to go at this field, and it needs to be safe for everyone as we do that. So that's a project that we're hoping to do this summer. And excuse me, I'm hoping this bronchitis will go away at some point.
Yeah, so that item really to us is a community investment. That's an investment for the community That is a field that will be continue to use even when EL opens its fields. You know, Mark Goslin was talking about the things they know they can bring in to that property to possibly raise revenue. And so they gave us feedback about what they would like to see there after we kind of leave the football, but it still will be used for other events, so.
Right.
So
Yes,
this
thank
is
you.
really community investment.
Yes. And it's still under the auspices of the school department?
Correct, yes.
On it.
So as we work on the MOU and how they're going to be using it, we thought it was important that those bleachers get replaced.
And we're not taking them with us?
Yeah.
We will not be taking them
They wouldn't be
anywhere,
allowed
Bonnie.
to be brought with us.
We did look into what would it cost to bring those bleachers up to modern safety specs, and it would cost almost as much as replacing them, so.
I actually was horrified when we had the meeting and we discussed them, that there's a 14-foot drop
Oh, yeah.
from the top.
That's right.
Yeah. So a little kid
Oh, yeah.
right down through, and that's the end of it, or an old lady right down through, that's it. So
Or a crippled school committee
Any,
member.
people of any
get up.
age. Good
I
point,
bring my
Bonnie.
bungee
People of any
cords with
age,
me.
we need to improve those, so.
Is it so illegal that we can't sell it for a good price to, you know, a homeschool or school
The
or
bleachers themselves?
just a charter school?
Well, first of
or-
all, they're massive, but Billy, what would we do with those bleachers?
Our plan is probably to take them to the scrapyard.
Oh, okay, the scrapyard will buy
These,
them.
these don't fit any standards today.
Yeah.
There's no railings, there's no handicap access, there's nothing there for anything in today's standards.
Okay,
So they're
We don't want
well
a
over
loss-
50
yeah.
years old.
we wouldn't want a lawsuit, for
Yeah.
sure.
No, we don't want exactly.
Are you replacing the seating on both sides, the visitor and the home side, or just what you showed in the picture?
This is just the home side. The visitor side will stay as is for now, and then
Get fast.
down the road, as the school football transitions to the new site, we may do something with those at that point.
So
Probably downsize the number of sets that are over there. Keep the best one.
Keep the best set,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right, because we will need them at baseball fields and whatever, right? Bleachers, if we could
yes.
salvage some part of
Yeah.
it.
especially if they're not too high.
Yeah, anything salvageable, we would salvage if it made sense. Other than that, we'll sell it for scrap and get what we can get.
Good idea.
And I think his crew's very excited to go out there and take them apart, from what I've heard, so.
Demo day.
Also at Walton, a small section of roof needs to be restored. We'll be looking to do that this summer. And this roof job, as well as the ones from last summer and the ones in the future, come from a report that we paid G&E Roofing to do a couple years back to make sure that we have a good plan in place. And so we'll look to update that report in a couple years and continue to keep our roofs in good shape.
And do we have comparisons for other businesses that gave us quotes?
Yeah, good question. So that's just a quote. We do put the work out to bid.
Okay, thank you.
This is the big new project on the list this year. Knowing that we're going to be staying at Franklin, it's time to address a few things there. Number one is the elevator, which is, how old, Billy? 20 years?
It's about 20 years, yes.
20 years old. We learned recently when it was inspected that it's basically reached the end of its life. The company that built it went out of business about 15 years ago, so it's going to be harder and harder to get parts. So it's time to replace it, but it's also time to make the building handicapped accessible so that students can access that ground floor where education happens and where these two sets of bathrooms are that you're seeing. And so we looked at these bathrooms, girls' bathroom and boys' bathroom. This shows part of the picture. If you saw the whole thing, it looks even worse than these pictures. I think some of those stalls date back to the original building, and it's time to redo the whole bathroom. And it makes sense to do it all at once because when we extend that elevator shaft down, it'll be right in the middle of that space. So it would all be done as one big project, and it will greatly improve that building for future educational needs.
There's no possibility of making that a ramp then to make it handicap accessible? Because you're coming in midway, right?
Right.
and you'd have a ramp up and a ramp down.
You need about a foot per inch.
The incline.
So you're gonna go down several feet, so it's gonna be, that would be a huge
long.
ramp. Yeah.
Too long to make it work.
Yeah, you don't have the room for that.
And the elevator is something that's been on the list for many years, and so when we looked at the bathrooms, it was time to do something with those. So to make it one project will save money than addressing them separately in the future.
Everybody realizes that it's not an elevator like out here in the hall.
No.
Microphone.
Not an elevator that's like out in the hall. You roll into it, close the door, go up, press the button and go up or down.
This is what's called just a lift, so it lifts you
Yes.
from one level to another, that's it.
Right, and people do look for them, so don't give them away. I'll give you a name that you can donate it to. No
Awesome.
liability.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Right?
Great. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Moving on to Fairview School, another handicap accessibility issue is the rear door at Fairview. They do have students who need this door to be handicapped accessible, and so it wouldn't cost us very much to do that, so we're looking to do that this summer for about $8,500. The Auburn Middle School has been wanting and needing new choir risers for quite a while, so they have obtained a quote. The ones that they have are not only old and beat up, but they don't have the safety rails in the back. So this is both a practical issue of replacing worn out equipment, but also a safety issue. This is just a rendering of what they could look like. So those were our priority 1 projects. Moving on to priority 2, addressing security operational upkeep needs. Support services, looking to replace a 2008 truck with a new truck with a plow and sander. And Billy has talked to me about repurposing the older truck, so I'll ask Billy to speak to that, and also as to whether we have a replacement plan for our trucks and how many we have.
Our replacement plan for trucks is usually, we start talking about them at 10 years old, and hopefully to get them replaced by 12. These trucks are the ones that plow all the school, all 11 campuses. We try to keep them as good a shape as possible, because these vehicles are, I guess you would call them kind of like on the emergency side. When we go out at 1 o'clock in the morning to plow, we've got 4 hours to get ready to tell the superintendent, are we ready or are we not ready? We're not in a position where we can do a lot of repairs in those 4 hours. So we try to keep them as good as condition as possible. So that's why they go on a 10-year plan. We currently do not have a backup plow truck, so if one goes down, then we have a person that doesn't have a truck, and he would probably go home. So we used to have a spare truck, and we used to use it for 2 things. It would be a spare truck to the plowing situation, and we also would let the transportation department use that as a daily vehicle to do errands, go get parts, whatever they need to do, take a bus over to another garage and pick somebody up. They currently are using one of the maintenance vans or transportation vans, and sometimes we have a conflict with that because we have a growing number of needs with our special ed group and our homeless group. So what we'd like to do is repurpose this truck when we get the new one, and give this one to transportation, so they would use it during the day, and it would also serve as a backup to our plow fleet.
So again, have you talked and worked with the city garage on?
Yeah, we've talked over this several times over the years, and the issue with plowing is when it snows, everybody's using their trucks. They're out plowing the streets the same time we're out plowing the schoolyard, so you can't borrow trucks, and they need their fleet and we need our fleet. This fleet that we currently have also is the fleet that the maintenance crew takes to repair the buildings, and also to take care of our grounds in the summertime. So they're a year-round truck. Their service is multifunctional. They're towing around our 3 trailers with our 4 mowers and our water cannons in the summertime. They're plowing and sanding in the wintertime. So they get a lot of use and a lot of abuse because they work very hard.
So am I correct with what you just said, is that you're plowing at 3, 4 in the morning while the city, you're plowing the campuses and the city is plowing the roads?
We're all plowing at the same time,
We're
yes.
all plowing at the same time? Okay.
Well, we have 3 childcares that have to get open by,
Right.
Yes.
yeah, so 6 a.m.
So
You know, I have to say to Billy, remember, the childcares, you need to get out
yeah.
there. And Alfred, they met, and Billy, do you remind about that you met with Dan Goyette and went over savings, and we did save $5,000 this year in our budget?
We're trying to work with them on saving some money out of our budget, which is rental equipment, which is the heavier equipment that we usually use to move snow back in the parking lots when they start getting a little small.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying this year to work out a plan on when they can do that for us. We know that they're busy at night too. They're removing snow and they're basically doing the same thing, but we're trying to work it in as they're in the same areas to help push snow back at the same time. So we can take some of that money out of our budget for the rental equipment.
Excellent, because I know there's been some new equipment that's been
Yeah.
purchased, so,
Yeah.
and it's stuff that they described as being really easy to navigate and getting into the nooks and crannies and things, so that's good. I was going to ask that question. Thank you.
It's a kind of a trial year. It's different.
Yep.
And it's hard to get all these places taken care of, but
Especially this year,
they're
it
willing to
snows
work
so
with it,
frequently.
and so aren't we. So we're trying to get that accomplished, and hopefully next year we'll do a better job.
So we're doing it
Good
this year?
start.
We're doing it actually this year?
Well, they've helped us out. They've come to 2 of the schools, and they went to, I believe, the middle school a couple weeks ago and pushed snow back, and they've gone to the high school and pushed snow back, so, which are our bigger campuses, so.
Thank you, it's good to know.
Sure.
Fairview School, we've talked with Celeste about the furniture needs over there, and she sent me many more pictures, but these are just 2 that I put on to show. There are a lot of desks and chairs that look like this, and so it's time to upgrade that furniture. We do this as schools have need, and so Celeste has gotten some quotes to upgrade what she needs, and it totaled about $85,000 to basically give the students and staff new chairs and desks.
Timing is off with the ELHS. I'm sure there's some tables and things that we could use from there, but
Right.
yeah.
And
these
I'm
are
sure when that time
elementary
comes that it'll all be put to good use
Yeah.
in one of the schools.
Right,
Or
good.
more, yes, absolutely. This, you'll recognize this from last year. This is a repeat, a
Yes.
return visitor in reprioritizing our funds for the high school and the Park Ave expansion. We didn't quite have enough to complete this, so it is back on the list for next year. This is to upgrade casework throughout Auburn Middle School, and there's already been quite a lot of legwork done. A consultant has come in and met with Bob and his staff and identified priorities, and so when the time comes to do that, that will be put out to bid.
Looks like a Bellegarde of years ago.
Do you see that that's going to be done this year?
What's that, Bonnie?
Will that be done this year?
That'll most likely be next summer, summer of '20.
Summer of 20.
Looking at school safety, there are 4 buildings that we'd like to put alarm systems in that don't currently have them. And so that should not say $1,000. I don't know what happened there.
That's a good deal.
So that is would be a good deal, but it's about $114,000 estimate to do all 4. And those would tie into the 911 system. That would bring our whole district up to the same security standards.
I was wondering who the contractor was at 1,000.
Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? I'll fix that for Monday.
Billy's going to do it.
Back to Fairview with another need. The library carpet is about 20 years old?
Yes, it's 23 years old.
23 years old, and in much need of replacement. There's a lot of areas of that carpet that are not in good shape, so we're looking to do that this summer.
No asbestos underneath it? No asbestos tiles underneath it?
No, that's carpet on concrete.
Okay.
yes, on a slab.
Billy, you're going to put carpet back down
In the library, yes.
in the library?
Yes.
The new flooring that we're considering for the high school, which is that rubberized, would that be a consideration?
I think you'll find at the high school, you probably get carpet in the library. It helps with the acoustics a great
Acoustics, I
deal.
recognize. I didn't know whether the rubber also.
Yeah, so. There's a lot of book reading where kids circle and sit on the carpet and everything, so besides the acoustics, it's more comfortable. So. We're looking at replacing that with carpet tile, so that you see in a lot of your commercial buildings now, so that as areas wear, we can just replace a section instead of, if something happens, instead of the whole carpet.
Yeah.
We had a talk at an A-team, administrative team, about playgrounds, and all of the elementary schools identified some needs. Swings was a common theme, in need of new swing sets, some new equipment to replace some older equipment. Some of it's wooden and really needs to be replaced with more durable equipment. There could also be some site improvements as far as play areas. And so what we'd like to do is have an allotment of $50,000 to go toward starting to upgrade these elementary playgrounds in collaboration with any funds that PTOs or other groups might have. And I just have a couple pictures of, there's the Walton swing set, and you can't see it too well, but that's East Auburn. There's a TP there that should be replaced with something else. Basketball surface should be bigger, et cetera. So that's something that we're looking to start improving.
On swing sets, are there any statistics on the injuries that are a result of swings? Do we have instances?
Nothing that I've heard about.
Not that I know of, Tom, but we do install our swing sets according to playground standards, which have a fall distance on both sides, actually on all four sides. And we also try to keep 12 to 14 inches of playground mulch there, so it's pretty soft.
Adam, are we able to access any CBDG funds? Because I believe Andrew Washburn had some CBDG funds that they used.
That's something I can ask, Bonnie. I haven't heard of any.
It's been a while since it's been used to support playgrounds.
Can we
it used to.
Can we just check, because
Yeah,
they banter CBDG funds around often?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Definitely check on that.
Especially for Walton, it might fit in.
Yeah, and Walton, I mean, they get a lot of use at the community level too, during the weekends or when games are going on at the Walton Field. Kids are on the play. Yeah, so they get a lot of use.
Yeah, that would be similar to what Katie said about the bleachers. It would not just be a school, but it would really be a community resource as well.
That's all the more to look to see if there's a CBDG.
Yeah, absolutely, Bonnie. We'll do that and let you know what we find out.
Okay.
And there's some items that you'll see out in future years in the full report that you have. The second installation of the 200,000 for Edward Little. Phase 2, depending what we find out this year, once we get some numbers, we'll see how much more we need, if any. We're looking to replace the fence behind the Washburn Playground. That's been on the list for a while, as well as possibly expand the space they have by filling in some of it out in the back there. That's something that Billy's talked about wanting to do. So that's something we're looking at doing maybe in a couple of years. And doing something with the East Auburn tennis courts is something we need to look at.
Are they there now?
The courts are there. They're not playable.
They're not playable.
So whatever it is, we need to do something, and that amount is would restore it to being a nice playable tennis court.
Right. And that's probably something that we should try to partner with the city, because that's a community thing, because it's in East Auburn, and I would look to say, look to partner with the city.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk with them throughout this year, Bonnie, before we come back next year. But that's a good point.
Because that's what Adam and I talked about, is if you restore it, you got to maintain it.
Right.
And we've had trouble maintaining our tennis courts.
Right. The other part, when you look at Walton's playground, I guess you call it. There's a road that divides the stadium, we'll call it, and the playground, is that correct? There's no fence there, right?
Correct. There's no fence around their playground.
Do you think that maybe
That's a
there
good idea.
should be a fence somewhere separating the road from the playground? Safety?
Sometimes I use some of the parking lot area, so.
They park cars on it.
Yeah, because there's not enough places to park.
Well, I'm just thinking,
There is a natural barrier that they built up the turf.
The turf, yeah.
So students know where, as they get close to the backside, where the back is. So.
But I think that we could look at that.
let's look at
Definitely.
look at a fence for,
We can look at that, Bonnie, and the fence around Walton Field is being replaced this summer, so we
There you
could
go.
certainly get a price to extend that project and include another fence, so.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
we can look into that. And with that, the total request for next year is 1.6 million.
Adam, can I
Any other
just,
questions?
can I just say something? I was very pleased in our finance committee meeting. We did have Tom from Siemens there, explaining their project that they're doing with us. And Billy was there, and Adam and Francois Boussier and I were there. And it was very complimentary to Billy and his crew that Siemens feels that our buildings are in excellent shape. Not that we don't need to keep improving them, but they're in excellent shape. So anybody that says that we don't maintain our buildings is wrong, because we do. We could always maintain them more if we had more money, but given the money that we have, we have maintained our buildings over the years, and they are in excellent condition. So anybody that says that our buildings are cruddy or not good shape needs to have a tour of all the buildings and see. You know, except for Franklin, because we've kind of thought that maybe that was going someplace else. But the rest of the buildings are in excellent shape.
Well, thank you, Bonnie. I agree 100%, but I would say we have put quite a bit into Franklin as
Yes, we
well
have.
over the years.
Yes, we
so.
have.
Franklin has got several upgrades itself, so.
Right, yes.
The one that stands out is the elevator and the downstairs bathrooms, yeah.
But overall, Siemens felt that our buildings were in excellent condition, and people shouldn't down what we've done with what we've been able to have.
Well, they might remember the buildings that we didn't upkeep and we closed. That's
Right, that's
probably what
right,
they're
yeah.
thinking of, because we have a number of them that were closed, small neighborhood buildings that we closed because we felt it was too expensive to renovate. And I've been here for 51 years, and I remember those one by one
I do too.
going
I've been
down.
here that long
Going
too,
down,
and I
yep.
remember those, and I remember reasons why we closed them too.
Right, so those,
And they weren't
that's-
always,
That's in the memory of what people are talking about, so let's be fair.
It's changing the narrative.
right, let's change the narrative.
An area that we haven't focused on at all is the exterior of schools in terms of some of the pavement. Are there plans? We don't do that with CIPs for some reason, but some of the pavement around some of our schools could use.
You mean Edward Little?
Oh, is that, I think there was a,
Maybe you're alluding to Edward Little.
yeah. How is that being addressed at this point?
I'm currently talking with the Public Works and seeing what we can do for, naturally, you don't want to, pavement is very expensive. Reconstruction roads are very expensive. So we're working on trying to figure out a plan on making that road so it'll last a couple more years before it turns into a construction site. So we're working on that.
We did talk, administrators, we had a talk on Tuesday that curb appeal is important. So we need to make sure that we're sweeping the front of our schools, that we're taking care of the trash around our schools. I mean, we want people to drive by and be proud of the schools. So we had a talk on Tuesday about we need to work hard that when we pull up, it's cleaned up and it looks presentable. So we did, it's funny you should mention, we talked about curb appeal on Tuesday, yesterday. It's important.
I think that curb appeal is very important, but I also think it's very important that when you're in the town for the first, in the city for the first time, and you come down over the hill to the middle school, and the parents are lined up on Court Street, and it's an accident waiting to happen there. I was appalled when I saw that the other day. I hadn't realized it was so bad. And I guess, and then they line up Falcon Drive, too, on it. We have buses that service, I think I counted 20 buses up there the other day.
A lot of buses.
It's a lot like
there's
Fairview.
18 to 20, yeah. There's
part
a
of
lot
the-
of parents that bring their kids to school and pick them up. So.
A lot of them, yeah. and
But
then the
have we
parents-
taken and reduced our riders on our buses because of that?
No, they're full.
I don't know if that's a fair statement. I can't give
That's a
you a
question.
fair answer on that because we really haven't done surveys this year. We only really do surveys when there's a request for them. I do know that some areas of the town, the buses are full, and some areas of the towns, the buses are not. So it's, and that shifts around as generations come and go. So it's a tough one to answer accurately, but there are some buses that are extremely full and some that's your out-of-town buses. You head out to West Auburn Road or whatever, the houses are spaced out more.
Right.
There's not as many kids on those buses, but there's a lot of students on the inner-town buses, upwards of 60 kids to a bus.
A lot of them are sitting 3 to a seat.
I realize
and-
that.
And when I watched for the Alpine, and I waited for
Yep.
them to go and go to the ski meets out of town, all those buses are packed.
Yeah.
There are very few that are not packed.
Yeah, especially at the elementary level.
But we need to do something about parents parking on Court Street, because that is an accident waiting to happen when we come up over that hill to start down.
It is something we've looked at in the past, Bonnie, but it's a very difficult entrance because that is our only entrance.
The parents could use Fairview Street as
That you
a,
have, yeah.
yeah, like we do some of us do at Fairview.
Yeah.
We use Allen Park.
Right.
On it, so to get them off Court Street would be fantastic.
I think the lighting, I've mentioned it to Phil Crowell, to talking about the lighting being off. And when people are going to work, and I'm trying to get to a meeting to the library, and I'm coming from that end of the city, the lighting is not right. You have to wait for somebody coming on Fairview Street, not Fairview, Park Avenue. It may just be one car, and it's going to trigger all of them on Court Street to stop. So there is a problem there that could be alleviated, I think.
This went up to John and Jane Davis? No, who?
I know where you are.
Is that, they went to John and Jane Davis's house. It went right up that.
Wow, yeah.
Daily. John
Daily, yes, thank you. It went right up to their house in front, and that's not right. Somebody's going to get hurt.
Yep.
And
Russ, did you want to say a few
I
things?
was going to say.
I do. First of all, I'm just taking exception to the way Franklin, I don't know, looks or doesn't have curb appeal. I think the curb appeal might be a little bit of a problem because of the mud and the snowbanks. And I think that's what's going on Court Street, to be honest with you, because I was up there the other day at the middle school. When the snowbanks are removed, it's a whole different, it's slightly different. But anyway, at Franklin, the school department's been really good to us.
Yes.
First of all, we have a new roof on the building.
Yes.
It's something no one would see. Secondly, it has brand-new windows in the building, and the whole, I'm going to say the northwest wall on the right side when you're looking at the building has been totally rebuilt, and then the building was repointed a few years ago. Something someone might not see. The building looks good, and then there was some siding that was put on the building. Then, when you walk into the building, there is no one that says, oh my God. Everybody who says, you guys are lucky, because we have some heat in there, and it's pretty comfortable heat, and we also have air conditioned. So it's climate controlled. You people put in the heat, the new boiler, and the air conditioning. The following year, you people came over and you put in new flooring, okay? The flooring right now, we've had some problem with the flooring because, you know, some of the tiles will come up, has to do with the type of chairs we had, and then new furniture was purchased. So, yeah, we need new bathrooms, and that's going to go. Those bathrooms are antiquated. They were made for little children.
Yes, they were.
And,
Tiny
you know,
ones.
they're a foot off the floor for the most part. So those bathrooms are antiquated, and so are the urinals. There used to be 7 urinals, now there's 3. And the other 4 are capped off. And the tiles are falling off the wall. But the building itself is in really good shape overall, and it will stand. It will stand, outlive all of us.
It certainly will, because it's a brick and mortar building, and they last forever.
Say, it's not in that bad a shape.
I know that.
I don't have the curb appeal, though.
You're working on it.
You're working on it.
I got a sweeper.
That's right, exactly. Starts with the broom.
So I need a motion to approve the fiscal year 2000 capital improvements plan as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor? Very good, thank you. School calendar, Katie.
Yeah, so last meeting, you had a presentation by Scott Anir, Eric Gray, and ELL teacher, and then you had Bob Griffin speak about the impact those early release days have had. So this is to approve the calendar. There have been, Roz and I, every time you look at it, and thank Mike Davis paying critical attention to the calendar, has picked up on things, which is excellent. So this is our calendar, and our families love to have them early as they plan when is the first day of school, when is graduation next year. So this is the time of year we usually approve our calendar.
So entertain a motion to approve the 1920 school calendar as presented.
I just have
And then they're going to have questions. Go ahead.
Yes, I just would like us to keep looking at this calendar every year in terms of the amount of time that students are out. And I know they make up the hours, but to see if there's a different model or anything different we can do that impacts the students a lot less and the families. I understand the value, no question whatsoever. I understand the value of the time that teachers need. But at some point in time, you know, one of the questions I had is that do we reach a point in time where, you know, we've had a lot of training, the evaluation training is done, and the training for instruction is done. Is there a possibility we could reduce this a little bit? So that's just my question in terms of down the road.
To add to that, or we could reduce it, or we could add to it for a longer calendar year for the schools.
I wouldn't mind a longer calendar
Either would
year,
I.
but that's expensive.
Expensive still. Did I have a second?
Year-round would be great, you know.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Any further questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Finance report. I think you're on, Bonnie, aren't you?
I am on. We met 2 weeks ago. There was Francois.
I did notice that, so I want to wake you up.
Yep. I know. We met about 2 weeks ago, Francois and Billy and Adam and I, and Siemens came to visit us to update us on their projects that they're doing on it. Basically, I have the same thing to report as we've always have. We're watching the expenses and revenue very carefully. We are looking at special ed, always looking at special ed on it. So we're looking at that, we're working on the budget, and we're moving along.
Yeah, and Tom Seekins was there to tell us that all the projects have been done from last year's performance contract phase 2.
Yep.
And so now the guaranteed savings period begins, and so they'll be giving us reports in about a year to see how some of those LED lighting projects have done for us. But that whole project went very well.
So that's it. It was fairly easy at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Nice job, Bonnie. I was covering some other bases while you were going on there. Sorry about that. I need a motion to approve the finance report for February 2019. Senate. Thank you, Bob. Second. Thank you, Dan. Any further questions? All those in favor? There we go. Moving right along. Policies. It's got to be.
Can I ask, Bob, would you like us to tell Pinky to start driving here?
Yeah, Pinky, come on if you're
Hey,
watching.
Pinky, if you're watching, you can start to come. All right. I knew you were thinking about it, Bob, so don't worry, I've got her on the move.
Up in here. Great.
Michelle.
Excellent. Yes, so we have
being in
3
Alaska.
policies tonight and a piece of evidence as well. So we're going to start first with policy, whoops, not that one. Just a minute. Where'd it go? There it goes. Policy IHBAC, which is the child find policy. This policy was reviewed recently, resulting from the special education audit that took place. The Department of Education came down and worked with Ryan and his staff, and they had very few things that they had to address for corrective action. One was to make an addition to our current policy, our child find policy, so you can see that, you know, the issues reflected there. So, questions on the child find policy? Look good?
So it's really just to align to the law, the current law.
Second policy, talk about tonight, EEA, which is Student Transportation Services. So there was a couple of meetings, lengthy, good discussion meetings that were held with the members of the Transportation Appeals Committee. Bonnie, you attended that. Jenna was with us at the time. She attended one of those meetings. There was a lot of discussion, I would say, about parts of this policy. And in the end, there were no changes to the policy. But we thought it was important, since we had gone through that level of review, that we bring that to the board for that approval. Bonnie, did you want to add anything to the, or Dan, actually?
Dan, you're at the chair.
You were at the first meeting.
I missed the second. Yeah.
We had a lot of discussion about pre-K and kindergarten children walking in different areas and not being bused. And we couldn't really come up with a sound agreement that we all would understand and work for on it. Billy was there, and he provided valuable information to us. So I guess the point being is that it's the parent's responsibility, when you place your child in child care, to find out how that child is going to get to school. Is that child going to walk, Dennison? And that seemed to be the area that we were most concerned with in that area. So is that child going to walk Dennison to the crossing guides to walk across to Washburn? So the point being is that the parents need to take the responsibility when they place their children in childcare to be sure that they understand what is happening, how the children are getting to school and back again.
Michelle, did I understand you say that the Student Transportation Services policy was not changed?
There were no changes that resulted from that review.
From that review, so does that need to be approved?
Yes, so this will just tell the story that it's been reviewed, and it will change the date on the back that it was reviewed with no changes.
All right.
And so it shows that you're reviewing your policies regularly, and you're not just letting them sit dormant out there.
Very good. All right. Next.
Great, no other questions, okay. So moving along, we have one final policy, and that is policy JLF, reporting child abuse and child protection. And again, there was quite a bit of changes to this policy, resulting from a change in statute and subsequent regulation coming out of the Department of Education after recent legislative action. It has some significant impact. Significant might be a bit of an overstatement, but it has some real implications for staff that will require some training for both our staff in general, anyone who is a mandated reporter, which would be any adult in our school department, needs to understand the changes to this regulation, or to this policy rather, and as well as our administrators. So it's going to have some impact on us. We're going to have to do some work to understand this policy and how it has brought us into alignment with the changes in the statute and the regulations.
Is it possible we could have a little workshop on that for purposes of the public so that they're aware that, you know, something is in place, and they themselves are mandated reporters as well. So, you know, these kids who get missed and overlooked, neighbors could have caught them, that kind of thing. So is that a possibility that we can do that?
Yeah, we can talk about the policy, absolutely. We can bring that forward, and yeah, and it did come out of those type of tragic situations that you heard about around the state.
It's a good summer.
Once we get past budget, maybe we can do.
Later, not now.
But put some items on there.
Yeah,
for
it's just awaken awareness on the part of everybody.
Exactly.
The village can help raise the children, you know what I mean?
And protect them, right, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it almost happened to me once when I was a kid, if I hadn't had good people around in my neighborhood, you know?
All right, accept the motion to approve the above listed policies at the first reading.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Go. Procedures.
Yes, we have JLF-E. We might want to make that note in the minutes, Roz, that it should be -E. It's a piece of evidence. Suspected child abuse and neglect reporting form. It aligns with the changes in the regulations. So we're reporting what we're supposed to be reporting now.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Very good.
I am going to ask Michelle, could you comment, just so this committee is aware that there has been meetings around the athletic handbook. It won't be coming to school committee for approval because it's part of the handbook. But could you just update folks on that committee's work? Because I know people have been, know that it's going on, and I want to make sure the public knows that we are reviewing it.
So even though that, and please, Scott, jog on up if you want to jump in. But even though that's reviewed every year internally by the high school administration, it was time to take a more comprehensive look at some pieces within that that contract, the eligibility contract. First of all, we're making a shift from an athletic contract to an extra and co-curricular contract. So all students who are participating in those activities, whether they be band or drama or soccer, will have this document as guidelines for their continued participation. But we focused in most specifically on eligibility, the area of eligibility, and having that conversation. I don't know how far you want me to go into this.
Well, no, we're looking at the consequences on first offense, second offense, third offense. So that was the major part of the handbook, was what happens when a student is in violation first offense, what happens on second offense, and really having conversation. So I know you talked about the shift about punishment. Okay, so I'll trigger your
Right,
yeah,
okay.
That's
That's
okay.
what I want to know. How far do you want to go into?
No, I think it's important for people to hear that, we're student-centered. That's what we're about. So there are consequences for your actions, but there's also rehabilitation as well. So do you want
the
to comment
shift
on
is
that?
starting to take place in the conversation to move it, the focus on if students are doing things that are unhealthy.
Right.
That we need to help address that issue with the family. And that maybe at some points, so they need more maybe counseling or education. They need to be involved in other aspects of their community through community service to give them a sense of belonging and contribution to their community, as well as they might need time out of playing or participating, depending on what they're in, to do those things, to focus on what they really need to be focused on for right now. And whether that's first offense for a shorter period of time, or if it's a second offense for a longer period of time. So it's a real shift of, I've been very impressed with that group, with how they're talking about,
Scott can comment.
about this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you. I know I put you on the spot, but I think it's important because...
That's great.
Yeah, we very much have, the document, and it's a procedure, it's a handbook, but it's our document, has lots of language and lots of scenarios in there. And it's had a long history where it was an opportunity for us to clean up some language so that it was clearer and more understandable, and to have a document that was user-friendly. And also, to very much what Michelle was saying, to have the mindset that there are consequences, but those consequences are a tool to changing behavior. And that, you know, that's a mindset that we try to keep at the forefront, that not only is there a consequence to changing behavior, but there's also some other steps that are part of the process in changing behavior. And sometimes that's talking about community service, sometimes that's talking about meeting with some counselors. It's really bridging that gap between the school and the family and the student, and trying to connect those pieces and really clean up the language, so we're not just talking about a consequence. Those are what your expected outcomes, but really to take the framework of how are we supporting the student through the process of changing that behavior, whether it's the first time or the second time, and having that meaningful in a way that has some equity for people, and also to really bring about the mindset of having it be for every activity, and to make some of that language so it fits across all settings, whether we're talking about marching band, we're talking about one act, or we're talking about a winter season or a spring season. And we've done a lot of comparison, brought in some language from many of our surrounding schools, tried to offer some historical perspective of why that language was there and how it's been added and it's subtracted and changed over time. And so it's been a very productive group. We have guidance counselor involved, we have Healthy Androscoggin involved, we have parents involved, we have other administrators involved. Michelle has been integral in that. But today we were doing some of the work that we love best, which is to get on a Google Doc and start wordsmithing back and forth on some specific language, so that we had good understanding to take out of that, so the group could come back and see if there was consensus. So it's been very healthy and very productive, and to get a bigger historical perspective of, and again, the history is important because you want to know why that language is there, but also to respect that anytime you look at these, pendulums swing and mindsets change over time, and this really reflects what we value in Auburn, what we value at Edward Little, and what we value as a community.
So we just talked today about students and having them.
Yes, right from the beginning, and I think we're at that place where we want to bring the kids in, not only to get their perspective, to also be sure that, and Michelle, like, I wish they were there yesterday, to make sure that we have language and it's sequenced in a manner that makes sense to them. Because what we all know too often than not is the kiddo and the family need to sign off, and we've always used it as great comfort to be able to say, well, they signed it, so it's all well and good, until something comes about, and then you really have to dig into it, and to really know that are we sequencing the language, the steps and the processes, and using language that makes sense to a kid and makes sense to a family. And so I think we're pretty close to that place of getting some kids to give us some input on that. They were excellent at providing some input last summer when we talked about eligibility. So now I think we have a draft that would really be important to bring them on board and get their perspective, but also really to be able to be sure that that language is very user-friendly.
And Faith Fontaine is sitting on that committee.
Yes,
yeah.
That's a great idea to have the kids involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Been our desire through that.
Once it's done, we'll definitely share it with you.
Yeah, we'll bring that in, and what you'll
Definitely
see is two pathways in each of the steps. So there'll be the traditional, if a student just wants to take the consequence way, and it'll look very similar to what it looks like now, with maybe some tweaks to timelines. But and then there will be an opportunity if a student is choosing to do some work, so to speak, on the issues that they really need to be focused on, whether it's drugs or alcohol, vaping, etc. If they're willing to do that work, then a plan will be put in place, and that's when they can reduce their time away from the team.
That was my question I was going to ask. Something that's been very effective is writing little mini plans and who is doing what are the parents going to do if it involves them, the students.
We very much talked about that yesterday.
That's very powerful.
In our conversation, almost like a 504 plan.
Yeah.
This this party's responsible for this, this party's
exactly.
responsible for this, and this party's.
It really
And having
works.
frequent checks through that process of the plan.
Great, that's great.
So we'll bring it to you when
Excited
they're,
about
when they're
it,
ready.
actually.
It's in draft right now. It's in draft form.
Very good.
This may be an Ed Little situation, but I think it's important that the middle school looks
Yeah. Oh,
at
yeah.
this too. And Franklin
It
too,
is
if there's kids that are
7 through
participating.
The language addresses being 7 through 8, and so
Right,
very
that's
much.
good.
7 through 12, yes.
That's 7 through 12, that's good.
That's great.
I wanted to make sure you were updated on
So we will bring
what's
that
going
back
on.
It's
once
good to
we-
hear.
Yeah, it will be brought to you when it's ready, so you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it stays in line with the overall policy. For us, it becomes very much procedural,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
allows us to tweak it as we need.
Thank you.
Very good. Committee reports. Elfrida, we got a city council update.
I don't have anything to update. Oh,
Did you pay the electrical
we've
bill?
been together, we've been mostly meeting together anyway.
I know it.
But I just have one thing I want to mention. I probably should have mentioned it at the communications point, but I'll be really quick. And this will be directed to Principal Lanier as well. I know you're in the original steps for the Friday recovery time, and I have been hearing feedback from parents and students. And the point of contention would be like the average kids or kids who are meeting their standards and passing their assessments, the ones, all of them, all the way up the chain of command there, they have a study hall on those days that's 80 minutes long. And so the thing that they're looking at is what can we do with those, instead of going to a study hall. I mean, there are options we talked about, and I talked with the superintendent about that today. We talked about some ideas. I know you're just fielding it out, and I certainly understand the teachers needing some time to do this. We don't want our kids to not be able to complete their work and have their assessments completed. So we see some room, and so probably we can have some conversations about that. And I am encouraging parents to call and to email and take some time to do that, so that they can, voice their concerns and some ideas and see if we can meet the needs of all groups of kids, not just the kids who, and I'm speaking as a former special educator, so I mean, I would have loved to have all that time for my students to be able to catch up and stuff, so that's not the problem. It's the other students, and for them to have meaningful time on task until the day is done. So, well.
And Scott, I'm going to talk to you about it.
Yeah,
It's
so-
not,
Yeah, thank
Very
you.
good. I don't believe,
Yes, we always have good ideas when we talk, so we
yeah,
can,
that's what, I said to Elfrida, you were already working on it, and we'll update.
yeah, that will be great, thank you.
to my understanding, there've been no other committee meetings that need a report at this point. Am I correct on that? I don't see anyone jumping forward. All right, then our upcoming meetings are the joint city council school committee meeting on the 25th, Monday, 5:30. If we're there around 6:15, you said?
Yep, 6:15 would be safe.
Would be good for that. Then the public hearing on the school budget, tentatively planned for March 27th. The regular meetings on the April 3rd, 24th, and May 1st and May 15th as we ramp up to the new high school referendum on June 11th. Is that correct?
Yes, so do you want to cancel next Wednesday and wait? Or do you want to do a public hearing next Wednesday for the budget?
I think we need to hear what's happened.
Yeah.
We don't have enough
Right,
time.
so that's what I'm thinking of, stalling that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll plan on April 3rd to do our workshop, and it says 6 o'clock, so let's stay with 6, I think an hour, because we'll have more information there. And then on April 24th is when you're voting on the referendum for new high school, but we could do the public hearing for the budget on that day, on the
Yeah.
24th, you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you send a little blurb to all of us? And then
Yeah, I'll remind you. So if we do the 3rd is you're doing the budget workshop.
Oh, so you're moving this to the 24th.
Right. So you have you're off
Taking
next
out the
week.
27th.
Correct. Yep. And then the 3rd, we'll do our workshop to see what you want to bring to a public hearing.
Yeah.
And we'll do the public hearing on the 24th because you vote on the budget on the 1st. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Very good. No need for an executive session. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in
Pinky's here.
favor?
Pinky's here.
Great.
Declare us adjourned.
Here.